G'day. Today I'm here with Peter Barclay. Peter is someone who is on a whole food plant-based diet. And Peter is also the editor of Whole Food Living, a excellent magazine that is still going in an online form, but was in a print form up till just recently. And Peter is also a journalist from way back. Peter, tell us a little bit about what you've done in the past.
I've been a community newspaper journalist, Grant. That's where my background started. I only worked in major media, in the mainstream media, in the very early part of my career. What I liked about the idea of community newspapers was because, I don't know, we were talking about potholes. We were talking about things that dramatically affected people right in their community. And when I came into this fold, and I never ever, honestly, I never ever expected I'd be writing about food by my very later stages of life. It was just the absolute last thing. To me, I could see that within the whole food plant-based community, there was a growing community. And it all came in because of a health event that I had.
How's your health, Peter?
Yeah, my health is really good now. There's no question about it. I do a part-time job down at the Port of Auckland, and in that job, I can walk between 25 and 35,000 steps in a day for that job in the space of 12 hours, because it's an outside job. It requires a lot of walking. And honestly, I've never felt better. I never thought. It's not when you take on something like whole food eating that you think you might feel worse, but you don't know what might happen. But when you ask me that question, as you put it to me now, how am I now? Yeah, biomarkers are down. I have issues that, and when it regards health, I'm not completely free of blood pressure. There is still some what one doctor a few years ago described as a genetic issue that might be there, but it's a very, very minimal amount. And so now what I do is I keep a closer watch in annual checkups on what my health is. And certainly the traditional doctors just says it's just great, So I think some of them can be happier than I am at times, but I tend to be a little bit skeptical. So
It's good to have a positive doctor, no doubt about it.
mm.
Um, okay, well, maybe thinking a bit more negatively now. How was your health before you changed your diet to a whole food plant-based diet?
Yeah, I think that question that it's possibly the answer to that is similar to many people. I was only ever sick if I got wasted, laid flat on the back. That was sick to me. Okay, that it's sick meant you could not go to work. You had to claim the health insurance or whatever. You had to get payment. I very rarely ever had that actually, but the truth of the matter is, probably a good 5 years before I ended up having a stroke, I was warned by the GP at the time, who was a traditional person in terms of what she ate and everything. She was not happy, but um, I I don't know whether I think it's a personality thing. Men, we tend to think we're 10 feet tall and bulletproof or whatever. If it's not laying us out on the ground, then we're not sick. And so you keep going on, and this just looked like a lot of numbers on a bit of paper, to be honest. It really did. Until one day I found out it meant something completely different.
Okay, tell us about that. What made you change?
I enjoy woodwork. I enjoy making things. I'm not brilliant at it, but I like making little bits of furniture, shelving and cupboards and things in the workshop. And the workshop is nothing fancy. It's just simply the garage converted. But in the end, it becomes my man cave when it's converted and the cars are out. All right. But what happened one day is I was in there and I had these sheets of MDF, and these were 12 by 2400 millimeters. They're big sheets, so they are heavy anyway. And I always was careful moving them, but I turned around at one point and my arm wouldn't move. And then my hand, my arm, I could not take hold of one of the pieces of MDF to lift it, and I didn't know what it was. I got a real fright because I knew it wasn't right. I knew this is not good, and is it going to get worse? And to get to my wife, who I had to tell, obviously, it was upstairs. I actually didn't know if I'd be able to walk upstairs to get to the rest of the house. So as it happened, I did, and so what happened was I lost complete movement in my left arm. I didn't lose speech or anything like that. I thought that this was pretty unusual. I joked about it even then, and this is the kind of attitude that obviously isn't good. And I think it's a male thing. I've described it at the time. I went up to show Catherine my new skill, which meant that I could only hold my arm up to here or whatever, just move it slightly, and everything else flopped around. Well, of course, she immediately rang the doctor and got me there as fast as possible. When I got to the doctors, basically they were calling the ambulance, and they told me that I was having a stroke. And I was still quite lucid. There was no pain. I knew that I felt maybe I felt slightly dizzy. I can't recall. I think my temperature was up because I was nervous. And anyway, when I got to the hospital, by the time I got to the hospital, I'd probably regained about 90% of the movement in the arm. And that to me was like, there's no problem. There is no problem. I'm out of here. And it truly wasn't until those doctors, and this is where I really credit them with letting me know what was going on. They said, and they gave me a percentage figure, which I still can't recall, but it didn't register, but it was serious. They said that your risk of having another stroke within the next 24 hours is something like 90% or something like that. It was huge. And I thought, oh, that's no good. That better not happen, because I know that I've had family member die of stroke. I knew that this wasn't right. So that's what happened to me. And it's probably, the story certainly is not, I know, as dramatic as what other people have had, but it was called what we call a TIA, a trans-ischemic attack. And what that means is that it's typically been classed as a mini stroke. Okay, and effectively, what it means is that something inside your head has been blocked temporarily. And of course, by the stage they get you into hospital with this, they shot you with all this stuff, and that's designed to actually melt the clot away and that sort of thing. And either that worked very quickly or whatever. After the scans went through, they actually couldn't find it, and that scared me as well. The fact is, I accepted that I'd had a stroke, and after that, Catherine and I did a lot of talking, really. That's where, but the event itself was instant. I believe it came on, and it happened, and I'd been warned about the possibility that something was not right. My biomarkers were not right, and that had happened sometime beforehand. Yeah.
How long ago was that, Peter?
Probably 5 years, I think. Right? Yeah, there was and I can't remember the name of it, but there was some sort of trial that was being done, and the surgery that I was with at that time was picked to be involved with it. And they were so concerned that the technician that was doing the survey actually brought me into another room, and I heard all that, and I still didn't do enough to think that I should change what I was doing. What food I was eating.
Yeah, I mean, so what did make you change then? What brought the change?
What made the change is that in the hospital, and I do think the medical profession for this, they did point me to the idea that my diet might not be right. And we listened to it, but we thought it was healthy. We thought, look, it certainly was eating animal product in that at that time and everything, and but I thought it was healthy. Then what happened was I let my daughter know from Mrs. Daughter from my first marriage, and she's she's vegan. She'd been vegan some years beforehand. She got on a plane, came up, and recommended a movie called Forks Over Knives. That made me think. That was the one that stopped me in my tracks and made me realize that the problem is coming from food, and not only did I feel guilty about it because it wasn't only myself, but it was the fact that we'd raised our children this way. I just didn't know. That really was the incentive. I looked at that movie and then I wanted to know more. That's the basis of it, I think. Yeah.
And the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. Well, yes and no, Grant. It's a good point that you raised there, because I'd like to think the rest is history, but in fact, it took me 3 years still to actually make myself, completely clean on the diet, so to speak, because I found it hard to let go of fish. I found it hard to let go because what I realized, and the way I was able to weigh it up after that was I credit so much of what I was being able to talk to a plant-based doctor. It was Dr. Mark Craig, here in Auckland. He just drew some interesting sort of comparisons with me. He pointed out, I'd said what I was eating, and he said, well, fish is probably the better one of the two, and I could see he wasn't too happy about it, and I didn't really want to go on about it. But the reality was, when I started examining the fish, I didn't actually just have the fish. It was all the oil, the butter, the garlic, and everything else with it. It was the taste associated with the actual fish itself that was what I was craving. And that's what started me thinking that this somehow, my love of these food was addictive. I had a certain set on the taste and I could not let it go. And that was it. Yeah.
So do you miss certain foods still?
No, I don't. I actually don't miss them. I can miss the convenience of them. There are times, I can miss the convenience of them, in the sense that we've done it now for 7 years. We've been this way for 7 years, and sometimes if we haven't thought or like done food, like right now we've got food in the house that's there for tonight or there for tomorrow as well. And so we cook differently, batch cooking and stuff like that. To be fair about your question, though, I was in I went through the supermarket and we was buying food as we do normally. And I went past the ham aisle and I don't know why, but I looked at it and I thought, whoa, no. Stay away from it, But for a second, it shocked me. That old memory came back, even with everything that I know and I feel perfectly comfortable with knowing now.
Yes, interesting. Now, my view of ham certainly has changed. I'm not awed by it. Well, what about the positive side of whole food plant-based eating?
The simple thing is that the positive side is that it is not hard to do. It's not hard to do once you begin to understand what to do. And I think this is the biggest thing as you read, things like the China study, how not to diet, those sort of things. So as I read more into it, not only did the mental conviction of what I was doing increase, because probably in that 3-year period, there was a skeptical factor attached to it. I thought, but really the truth is I didn't want to let it go. I should have let it go. Frankly, I wasted 3 years, but having the good side of it is that you do feel tremendously different. Catherine and I are fairly strict on the no sugar, no oil, no salt. Okay. Are we perfect on it? Well, no. I've been known when I've been feeling tired to leave the port of Auckland after a 12-hour shift and pick up a vegan sausage roll on the way home, which has too much oil in it, really, honestly.
I think you can forgive yourself for that, Peter.
Yeah, thanks. That helps me along heaps. But yeah, I do that, but it's not a common thing. And I think too that I've learned to be easier on myself now more than anything. I'm able to weigh up what's different, learning the difference between what heavily processed foods are, even what's in, you think you've got ordinary cans of peaches and you look carefully at the labels on those peaches and you find out what's in it. You're not eating what you think you should be eating.
Just to give an example there, I've been eating vocal bread for quite a while. I love it. But I just found out that one of the loaves I've been eating has got milk products in it. I never noticed it before. But there's another version of it that doesn't. So we've now changed to the other version. But I mean, will it make much difference? It probably wouldn't. But, it's a case of being squeaky clean. Esselstyn goes on about it, Dr. Esselstyn, about, they need to try to keep on the straight and narrow as much as possible. Because if you start fudging the edges, before you know it, you've actually got a lot of junk in your diet and you just got to start all over again and get it all out again. So, we've got to try to keep on straight and narrow if we can.
I think that's quite true. I think in the beginning, I kind of looked on the food as medicine. I thought, okay, if I don't get used to this stuff as medicine, I'm going to be taking a whole heap of different medicines. And so basically, I just looked at it that way.
Did you talk to any doctors who are not plant-based, and what's their attitude? What do you think about it?
We were seeing Dr. Craig, and certainly, I'd recommend anybody see him as far as if they're going down this track. There's no question about that. As it would be any plant-based doctors that we've got operating in New Zealand. There's a few of them. But for me, because we live out of central Auckland, it was more and more difficult to actually travel to that position. So we ended up saying, okay, we think we know a bit about this now. We'll go along with a traditional doctor. Because of the way the economy has worked, and the doctors' surgeries collapsing, the practice that we're involved with, which is quite a large one, has actually gone through a couple of variations. And so I've probably seen about 3 practitioners that are not plant-based since that early time with Mark, and it's kind of heartbreaking, frankly. It's just utterly surprising. I mean, I'm not saying they know nothing. There's simple facts here. Like, is there any fiber in meat? There isn't. It's sort of like, what value would an egg give you? And I'd say my first reaction is the whole heap of cholesterol. And I think that that's one of the things that you kind of look at too as we go down this track of whole food plant-based, because we've got in Dr. Dean Ornish's diet, for instance, he recommends the white of eggs for protein. That's in the Ornish diet. Now, I'm talking with a man in the United States at the moment. He's had 18 stents. He's doing the Ornish diet, and that's fine. I'm saying there are variations even within the people who are WFPB, but by gosh, any one of them, stick with them if you want to learn about this, because the other guys are not going to help. That's all I can say, and that's really been my experience.
So is there anything else about, what people should know about the whole food plant-based diet that you want to add to that?
I think the big thing is that I'd like to issue an appeal to men, to be honest, because I feel we need to get alongside our wives in the kitchen and understand what they're doing. Catherine decided to, I would not find this diet anywhere near as easy, or would be doing it as well, I believe, as I am now, without the support of my wife. That's it, So I take my hat off to people, and men and women, that are doing it alone. I think it's because we know that health is more than just the food, for instance. It involves a lot of things. I know for yourself, Grant, you're involved in a choir. You know what I mean? For myself, we were sad to let the print version of Whole Food Living go, but we had to. There was a tremendous mental pressure with it. And we certainly love the reaction, and I love what I'm doing now. But this morning, I'm sort of thinking to myself, why have I not got airbrushing going again? I've got the compressor out there in the garage. I've got all the tools, and I haven't ever got it all hooked up and connected up. And it's because I've been doing something else. And what I know now is that a lot of those things, a lot of the things that you like to ride a bike, and in actual fact, we've discovered walking to be a great thing. We've done long walks now, especially when we're down Queenstown and that. We enjoy that. I just sort of think that the diet really has enabled us to do this, because it gives you the ability to weigh up different parts of your health journey, if you like what I mean. So for men, I feel that you've got to get to understand this yourself, and it's about taking charge of your own health. And I think that's also what you've done yourself. Effectively, you've suddenly realized that, like as I have, that heck, I'm actually responsible for what I put in my mouth. What I know my darling wife will do, she will feed me whatever I think tastes good.
Interesting ideas there, Peter. I mean, you're right. Having a wife who's on board makes a huge difference. My wife came on board about 6 months after I changed my diet, and that's the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't know how I would have done it if she hadn't. And she's an excellent chef, and she's always looking for new vegan meals for me to enjoy. So I just live in that, and it's a great thing. And you're right, and you also alluded to the fact that you're liberated to do other things you're interested in, biking, walking, in my case, a choir. And these are things you can do because you're not worrying about your health all the time. You're not limping to the door. I know there's one person in my choir, for instance, who he can't stand because he has a DVT. So he goes to choir and he practices sitting down, but he doesn't do the concerts. And that's sad. But if he changed his diet, he probably could do them both. It liberates you to do what you want to do. And this is it. This is the real thing about our diet. Yeah.
It's quite sobering, isn't it? Because really what happens is that, whereas we sort of might have thinking, oh gosh, someone's a bit overweight. Well, you see, where weight is concerned, that's something I feel quite guilty about. I was complaining about my wife's weight, to be honest with you, well before I got on the scale and examined mine, and to this day, I still feel bad about that, The reality is that probably if you think your wife's put weight on, you better get on the scales yourself. And then you both better get talking about what you're eating, As you become aware of what's happening, and how this thing can change, because I lost a lot of weight, you do start to look around you at your community, at the people you're associated with, and suddenly see that it's sad, it's horrifying, in a way, because in the field that I've worked in, I've seen people with dementia, move into dementia and then ended up into a home. And one of them ended up on television after he died in a creek, and his granddaughter was on television. I worked with this man, and this became a national thing, because he'd wandered off from the home he was in. And this person was, he was a prominent league coach at one stage.
You're not saying that it would prevent dementia, but it could certainly help to delay it, and you will be much less likely of getting it probably if you change your diet.
Yeah, I don't do the diet because I might live to 94. I do the diet because I would like to be in possession of my faculties for as long as possible, because I can't determine the length. I only came to this realization at about the age of 60 odd, and I'm a prior substantial consumer of alcohol. I smoked for a long time. All of those things cause damage to the body. And I truly envy people that have been able to make a decision or were raised this way, because I think the life you can have is just limitless. It's incredible what you can do.
Indeed. Thanks, Peter. I think that's a really good point to finish on. You know, we live this way, we eat this way because it liberates us to live the best life we want to live, and we can do it. And it's great. Anyway, thanks, Peter. Catch you again later. Bye.
Okay, cheers.